On to Talk of the Nation. Now, the 11th Parliament ended its term this week with the passing of the Protection of Sovereignty Bill 2026, adopting amendments that the framers say would significantly narrow its scope, remove contentious provisions, as well as introduce safeguards aimed at aligning the law with the Constitution and existing regulatory frameworks. Opposition and civil rights groups oppose the act. I am now joined by Job Kiija, a policy analyst, to discuss the legislative performance of this parliament and the way forward. Good evening to you, Job, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Mildred, and thank you for hosting me here today.
All right. And so now let us start with the parliament and its oversight role. We know that Ugandans overwhelmingly support it and the government expenditure, yet critics argue that MPs are too politically compromised to effectively challenge the executive. And so we're asking, is the parliament, as it is, failing its constitutional oversight mandate, or how much is the politicking in Uganda's legislative decisions determined by the parties to which they subscribe?
First of all, generally, it's quite absurd that we don't even have a parliament to talk of. You have members of parliament, but if you're to look at parliament as an institution, in terms of the manner in which it is supposed to be existing, it is non-existent. Because parliament has been generally fused with the executive, and so they can no longer play their oversight role, for instance. But even when you look at legislation, because you know parliament, executive, judiciary, these three arms are supposed to be entirely independent, whereby the legislature or the legislative arm is supposed to be playing an oversight role over the executive, but that is no longer existent.
And why is that?
Like I said, they've been fused, so parliament has actually been captured. So in terms of its oversight function, it is not able to do that because even when you look at the budgeting process, it is more or less a syndicate of corruption. You find that there are so many supplementaries. The other day I had one of the MPs complaining that I think sometime last year, about 1.6 trillion shillings was passed in supplementary, which was supposed to be going to the roads sector. But when they checked, only 600 billion shillings had actually reached. So the question is, where did that money go? What we are seeing, of course, I mean, you must have heard that I think somebody has bought a Rolls Royce and whatever. We are seeing all these things coming up. And so you see the budget is corrupt in a certain way, but also the people that actually are passing this budget have money that we don't understand where it is coming from. So clearly you can see that there's that syndicate of corruption. And we've been hearing of these stories for quite a long time. So in terms of the oversight role that parliament is supposed to be playing over the executive, they are not able to do that. But also number two, if you look at it in terms of its legislative function, parliament is no longer legislating. They are just now, it has become more like a clearing house for laws that the executive want to be put in place.
Are you saying that now they are coming to the floor of parliament for formality?
Exactly.
The decisions have already been made backdoor.
Yeah. I mean, even if you followed a number of these bills, the UPDF amendment bill, even the sovereignty bill, and I remember we actually warned when we were working on this sovereignty bill, we were told that actually committee reports are not even written by the clerks. They are written somewhere else. And I think the sovereignty bill, because we followed it closely, it's just out there in the open. We all know that actually the bill was never debated by the committees that were supposed to be working on it. They simply got something, a new bill actually, from the Attorney General, and they just had to adopt it as is. Interestingly, the committee actually had a comprehensive report, which I have, okay? Which I think is about 22 pages, 18 pages from the consultations. This report was supposed to guide from the public hearings. This report was supposed to guide the committee business in Munyonyo. But when they went there, the chairperson of the committee, in his limited wisdom, he decided to put that report aside and adopt a bill that had come from the Attorney General without even allowing the committee members to actually debate that bill. So you can't say that is legislation. That is simply rubber stamping what the executive wants. So Parliament has no capacity to actually even legislate meaningfully for this country because they are not legislating. If you look at members of Parliament, I am so convinced 95% of those that passed that sovereignty bill this week do not even understand the contents of that bill. They had probably even never read it. If you look even at the committee, I am convinced that majority of these MPs, members of the committee, were actually going to interface with this bill for the first time in Munyonyo, and they never got that opportunity. But
if you're to look at the clauses that were actually raising controversy or that people were not comfortable with, they were struck out.
They were struck out, but not by the committee. They were struck out because of the pressure.
The bill
was because of the public pressure.
Yes.
The Attorney General amended that bill 4 times. I looked at all the 4 versions. 4 times. Okay? So you can't say that the committee actually struck out these provisions. They didn't. These provisions, yielding to public pressure, the Attorney General and I think the Minister and a couple of other people who were somewhere following what was going on in terms of the public debate, decided to edit. So if you look at it, you can even see that this bill was in track changes.
So then, Job, what institutional safeguards can be put in place to ensure that Parliament's autonomy is revived?
I think, first of all, you need to make sure that you have solid leadership for Parliament, because at the moment, as we speak, Parliament has no leadership. You can't say that...
there is a Speaker of Parliament, there is the Deputy, and, you know...
You see, you can occupy a position, but when you're not actually doing what you're supposed to be doing in that position. You can't tell me that the Speaker, the manner in which they conducted business on Tuesday, that they were actually chairing the parliamentary proceedings on that day in the manner that they are expected to do in terms of chairing Parliament. So you have individuals occupying these positions, but they are not able to play the role that they are supposed to be playing, because you've heard even the Speaker in public platforms saying that, you know, whatever the NRM wants is what will pass. For them, they pay allegiance to President Museveni, and I think now they have said even to General Muhoozi. So what President Museveni wants and what General Muhoozi wants is what will pass. So you can't tell me that you actually a neutral arbiter in terms of the manner in which Parliament is supposed to be exercised. We've had the same Speaker saying that in the 11th Parliament there was no position because apparently she swallowed them up. And she'll say she's going to gallop the ones in the 12th Parliament. So you can't call that a Speaker. That is someone that is simply just occupying the Speaker's office.
What is the other safeguard that we can see and have the Parliament actually be entirely independent, in your view?
Yeah, so I think what needs to be done, first of all, is to make sure that the executive is forced to guarantee the independence of the legislature. And I think there are certain things that can actually be done in terms of the laws and even the constitution that we have in place, such that you're able to strengthen the constitution, in that the executive no longer has the legroom to do whatever they want as they wish. You need to be able to tighten the things that ensure that the president is actually accountable to citizens, but also to the different institutions, the different arms. There should be consequences for the executive meddling into the affairs of the other arms, because right now we are talking about Parliament, but we also know that the judiciary is actually also captured. If you look at the manner in which the judiciary is constituted, you can see that there's a problem there. If you look at the manner in which Parliament, the leadership even, is elected, I think what you need to do is to make sure that when somebody is elected Speaker and Deputy Speaker, they first of all lose their constituency seats and they play the role of being arbiters in the House, such that they no longer have any allegiance to anyone else, but also strengthen the accountability mechanisms, such that if individuals' leadership of Parliament is dipping their hands in state coffers, there are ways of holding them accountable and ensuring that they pay for their consequences that they pay for.
But also this speaks to the presence of the opposition in the parliament. I think they are also, on the other hand, supposed to play a role in ensuring that the leadership of the parliament, like you are saying, there is no leadership, it is answerable to some of these issues that you're raising.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, the bigger challenge is about the numbers. If you look at the opposition, I think right now the leading opposition party has 50 MPs. They have to stand up against, I think, 500 other MPs that are coming from the ruling party. So, and I think for me, in a way, actually, if you look at the leader of opposition's office, they have really tried even to come up with alternative policy agendas. They have tried really to raise the different issues around accountability. You saw even during the debate on the sovereignty bill, they really tried to put up a spirited fight, but they were really thin in terms of numbers. So there's a limit on what they can do where there's a mob of so many other people that they are standing up against. So in terms of the opposition, yes, they can try to do as much as they can, but of course also you know that some of them actually are compromised. If you look, I think one of the biggest proponents of the sovereignty bill has been Honorable Nsibambi, who is formerly a very high-profile individual in the opposition. But also we've been hearing of many of them also getting kickbacks, etc. But I think for me most fundamentally is the challenge that actually Parliament as an institution is also now looked at as a corruption enterprise. If you look at the perception that citizens generally have of Parliament is that this is a gang of thieves that are stealing from taxpayers. If you look at the manner in which they are paid to pass laws, you hear the stories of corruption, of them asking different state agencies to give them kickbacks such that they can integrate the different components of their budgets in the national budget. Many of them have been involved in theft of things even as basic as iron sheets. You remember the cooperative saga. So I think that really has tainted the image of Parliament, and there's need really for it to have a solid leadership that helps liberate it from this negative publicity that it has in the public eye. And
so then what measures could help restore the public confidence? Because like you say, it's even noted down in the Afrobarometer report that a significant portion of Ugandans believe that many MPs are corrupt and also liars. And so then how do we, because I mean at the end of the cycle of 5 years, we are still going to go and vote, and still the members of public have to make this decision. And so how then can, you know, they restore or get this trust in the Parliament again?
I think there are two things that need to be done. First of all, the size of Parliament needs to be reduced significantly. And then secondly, the qualifications to become a member of Parliament also have to be raised higher. And it's not even about academic qualifications, because as you understand, you know that this Parliament is one of the most educated that we've had in the history of Uganda. But also you know how in this country people get even, I mean, people have doctorates which have been bought either from Dubai or wherever. So you can't be looking at educational academic qualifications. But you need to be able to raise the bar quite higher, such that people are elected based on track record. What have they been able to do in the past? Do they have corporate governance competencies, for instance? Because if you look at majority of these people in that house, they actually don't even understand anything to do with corporate governance. If you look at even understanding legislation, laws, some of them don't even know how to read bills. So you need to be able to reduce the size of Parliament significantly, such that you have a quality of actors that have gone through some kind of processing, which can even be done at political party level. So you need to have the sieve for them, such that it is not just, yes, minimum is sex qualification, degrees, whatever.
Okay.
You need to be able to have certain other competencies that you look at for these people to be elected as members of Parliament.
So let us wrap up this conversation with looking at how, you know, the Parliament has repeatedly amended its constitution on, I mean, the country. The constitution on politically sensitive matters. We have seen the presidential term limit as well as the age limit. And so at what point do the constitutional amendments stop being democratic reforms and instead become political engineering?
I think, of course, we lost the battle in 2005 when we removed the first safeguard that we had to a peaceful transition. And then 2017, when we removed age limits. 2005, we removed term limits. Then 2017, we removed age limit. So if you look at a number of provisions that have been amended, these have actually been to protect the establishment, to ensure that the current regime stays in power. But also, you realize that actually it is not the amendments in the Constitution that have actually indeed amended the Constitution. You realize that even in these other laws that we are having, like if you look at the sovereignty bill, initially the way it was constructed, it was, written, it was amending even Article 1 of the Constitution. So we've had so many other unconstitutional laws which are taking away certain things that have been protected in the Constitution and ensuring that these actually are damaged in these other laws.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Job Kiija, policy analyst, getting to help us understand the impact of the involvement of the executive in the legislative arm of government. And with that conversation, we stop for a break. When we return, we'll be hearing from the world of